Win bigger, win better with Pixby Casino Online. Simply go to your browser and click www.pixbycasino.co.sz and tap into a world of infinite possibilities and winnings. T's and C's apply.
Good evening, this is the Eswatini TV News at 8. I am Natalie Sitole, alongside Makabiso Ngambule. First up, let's have a look at our top stories.
His Majesty King Mswati III has received letters of credence from incoming ambassadors of the Republic of Burundi and Norway, respectively. The Deputy Prime Minister Tema Masuku has toured Far East Textiles to familiarize himself with operations. The Ministry of Commerce today debated the proposed changes of the existing Standards and Quality Bill of 2020 and the Technical, Regulatory and Quality Infrastructure Bill of 2020 with senators and the Ministry's Portfolio Committee.
The news. His Majesty King Mswati III has, on behalf of the nation, extended appreciation to the Kingdom of Sweden for its continued support towards the kingdom, which it extends through the European Union. His Majesty says Sweden's support has boosted Eswatini's efforts to improve the welfare of the nation. The King spoke at Losita Palace, where he received letters of credence from the newly accredited Ambassador of Norway.
Excellence. His Majesty the King received Her Excellency Ambassador Mette Sundgren, who has officially begun her tour of duty as Sweden's newly accredited non-residential ambassador to the Kingdom of Eswatini. The ambassador, who previously led the European Commission's Directorate General for International Cooperation and Development in Zimbabwe, has been commissioned by His Majesty King Carl Gustaf XVI to serve as Sweden's top envoy to Eswatini.
Commissioner of His Majesty's Correctional Service.
Hey, no, power. Your Majesty, may I please present the ambassador designate from the Kingdom of Sweden. Your Majesty, please.
Her speech touched on the need to give diplomacy a chance in the Russia-Ukraine war, protecting the environment, Sweden's presidency of the European Union Council in 2023, as well as her pledge to promote relations between Eswatini and Sweden.
Your Majesty, today I have the honor to present to you the letters of credence by which His Majesty King Carl XVI Gustaf appoints me his ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary of the Kingdom of Sweden to the Kingdom of Eswatini. I assure you, Your Majesty, that I will continue the work of my predecessors to promote knowledge and interest in Sweden for your kingdom. Although I will not be a resident ambassador, I'd like to underline the excellent presence Sweden has in Eswatini through our honorary consul, Ms. Anita Jones, and her executive assistant, Ms. Sirle Lukele. In the conference in 1972, our then and now late Prime Minister Olof Palme said, "Our future is common. We must share it together. We must shape it together. His words resonate not only to the environment, but also to other components of our shared responsibilities for a better future for all. I believe that is as true today as it was in 1972. Your Majesty, I look much forward as Ambassador of Sweden to the Kingdom of Eswatini to further strengthen the good bilateral relationship between our two nations.
His Majesty the King decried the political instability that continues to grip Europe and said the political crisis requires a sustainable solution. The King wished Sweden success as it assumes the chairmanship of the European Union Council next year and thanked the Kingdom for all support that it has extended towards Eswatini through the European Union.
The region is also affected with situations of conflict, which of course nobody do support such things like that, and we hope an answer and a solution to this problem will be soon be found. But we are hopeful that when the Swedish becomes the EU president, we will also keep in touch, keep the contact going. We appreciate the activities which the EU contributes. There's a lot of social activities which you've made. I can count a number of them where the EU has been very much involved in the social welfare, in the economy, and so on.
On the news, I'm Sandile Makanya reporting at Lozita Palace.
His Majesty King Mswati III has called for strong programs of renewed cooperation between the Kingdom of Eswatini and the Republic of Burundi. His Majesty says the programs must be consistent with the African Union's Agenda 2063. The King spoke at Lozita Palace, where he received letters of credence from the Ambassador of the Republic of Burundi.
Burundi Republic, yeah.
His Majesty the King received His Excellency Ambassador Alexis Bokoru, the newly appointed Ambassador of the Republic of Burundi to Eswatini, who arrived at Lozita Palace to present his letters of credence to His Majesty the King. The Republic of Burundi is a landlocked country like the Kingdom of Eswatini, and it is located in East Africa with a projected population of 12.5 million people.
Right. Your Majesty, may I please present the Ambassador Designate from the Republic of Burundi. Your Majesty, please.
The ambassador's remarks indicated that he is ready to hit the ground running in as far as advancing ties between the two countries is concerned.
Your Majesty, it's my honor and privilege to present to Your Majesty today the letter from President of the Republic of Burundi, His Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye, accrediting me as the Ambassador, Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to the Kingdom of Eswatini. Your Majesty, it's high time we move to further our relationship in more dynamic ties. Many are the opportunities that can shape the Republic of Burundi and the Kingdom of Eswatini in togetherness. According to our President's motto, together we can, we are together and we will achieve more in different horizons. The Republic of Burundi is available to working with the Kingdom of Eswatini in exploring areas of cooperation and implementing varied causes of common interest.
His Majesty the King called for the developing of strong programs of renewed cooperation between Eswatini and Burundi. The King says such programs must be consistent with the aspirations of Agenda 2063.
We are looking forward that with your appointment, there will be a lot of programs that we can develop together. especially because Africa has realized that for Africa, we need to be a better place by 2063. That means we need to transform Africa, make it one of the best places to live in. Obviously, we have to work together as the African Union spirit is that all African member states should work together. The launch of the free trade area, for instance, it's one of the tools which we are trying to support Africa in terms of trade and so on, because if you look at the trade volumes between the African member states, it's not as big as one would want to see it. Of course, with the free trade area, we are hopeful that these are some of the structures as African unions that we've established we should make use of so that Africa can once again become the Africa that we want.
On the news, I'm Sandile Makanya reporting at Lozita Palace.
The Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku encourages women to emulate Far East Textiles Director Toki Ho, who is the only woman in the textile industry, by venturing into this sector. Masuku said this when touring Far East Textiles as means to familiarize himself with operations.
Far East Textile started operations in the year 2002 and to date is comprised of 650 staff members, whilst 98% of them are females. Far East Textiles Director Toki Ho says this month the cottage factory will be open in the Manzini region. She says the factory will also benefit disabled persons.
Manzini utawuchinja mhla ka 19 August. Sivula i-factory lenkulu kakhulu yana cottage factory. Lapho khona we have 5 containers. 2 containers joined together. Ayabonakala nje saqalile semahle. Lapho khona kutaba kunabomake, labomake labatfungako. Lomunye 2 lohlanganiswe together utawutfunga bomake labaphila ne-disability. Kamanzini sibese siyatfola ne-stats lesithi manje 37% webantu kamanzini labaphila ne-disability. Labe batfungela basebentela phasi tihlahla lapho khona bebakhala ukuthi kude lisito labalitfolako. But with this program bomake kamanzini batophila.
The Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku's portfolio, among other things, includes the social welfare of disabled persons in the country. Masuku says he is pleased to note that the factory accommodates disabled people and further encourages women to emulate Toki Ho and venture to the textiles industry.
Akufanele kufe lo nje sifuna ukuthi kungakapheli iminyaka lemingaki babe babanengi bomake Toki Ho leli. Uthi uyesteke ukhanzise kwaba na Toki Ho wasesteke. Uthi uyenhlangano all over ukhanzela bomake sebavele bayisukumele lena. Kude lapha kungacatshanwa khona ngoba bomake bemele ukuthuthukisa. Abakemeli kufuna kukhulu. Bemele nje ukuthuthukisa. Nekuthi ke lapha ngikhanza sikhanze kunebantu labakhubatekile. Cishe balo lonke ehlobo. Bahlethi laba displayer letinto labatentako lobafundzise tona ubatholele net-market.
On the issue of wages, Masuku says one can never say they are earning enough money no matter how much they are being paid. But what is more important is the collaboration between employees and employers. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, Matsapa.
The Minister of Education and Training, Lady Howard, says the country cannot afford to have other disruptions in schools following the COVID-19 pandemic and the civil unrest. The minister has been speaking during the Transforming Education Stakeholder Consultation meeting hosted by the ministry in partnership with the United Nations Eswatini.
Following the COVID-19 pandemic disruptions on the education sector, last year, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres tasked UN member states to compile a report on how to transform education to recover from the pandemic-related learning losses. On Thursday, the Minister of Education and Training, in partnership with the United Nations Eswatini, held a stakeholder consultation meeting to mobilize political ambition, actions and solutions to transform education in Eswatini. The Minister of Education and Training, Lady Hawa, says the country cannot afford any lessons disruptions.
The sector is still recovering from the educational losses due to COVID-19, civil unrest, and tropical storms which have further widened existing inequalities in the country's educational attainment. The documented effects to our children include increased cases of unintended teenage pregnancies, child marriages and sexual exploitation, substance abuse, discouraged learners who will further drop out from the education system, mental health issues due to heightened anxiety and uncertainties on the future of education for learners, child labor in informal or illegal employment. Our sector cannot afford any further losses, hence an urgent need for a transformative, innovative, sustainable and resilient solution towards building an inclusive, equitable and quality education system.
UN Resident Coordinator George Wachira says education holds the key to building a more prosperous future for children.
The COVID-19 pandemic, to be specific, and the uneven measures for learning recovery across our world is turning this crisis into what our Secretary General has called a generational catastrophe, especially for our marginalized and vulnerable groups. We are here because we must be concerned for our children and their future. We are here because education holds the key to building a more equal, secure, and prosperous future, and because our children are our future, and we owe our children a future.
The Kingdom of Eswatini is expected to compile a report on transforming education, which will be presented at the Transforming Education Summit to be held next month in New York. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkel Suekoza with Muva Shongwe, Papane.
The Minister of Finance, Nurekenberg, has encouraged females to never look down on themselves and undermine their ability because they have a role to play in the economy. He was speaking at the Happy Valley Hotel in Ezulwini during the launch of the Eswatini Gender Inclusive Finance Roadmap.
For the longest time, women have been excluded and sidelined in socio-economic issues and access to finance, with mostly barriers hindering them to financial access due to their marital status, some being required consent from their husbands. As a result, the Center for Financial Inclusion has introduced the Eswatini Gender Inclusive Finance Roadmap, which seeks to ensure that they have access to finances. The roadmap was launched by the Minister of Finance, Neil Reckenbeck, at the Happy Valley Zulwini.
It is driven by a host of reasons, including restrictive socio-cultural norms, policies, and regulations that are not gender-sensitive, structural barriers, as well as limited access to financial products and services. However, in Eswatini, we took the first step constitutionally to empower women and recognize their rights as citizens in this country.
The Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Eswatini, Felicia Gunene, pledged to support the Center for Financial Inclusion on behalf of the Central Bank.
The intention is to integrate women and youth issues into the mainstream conversations of access to finance.
The Center for Financial Inclusion CEO Namcebo Hadebe says they aim to remove all barriers that hinder women to unleash their potential.
It then takes us back to a dreamland where we begin to imagine an Eswatini, which is forms part of an equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, a world that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive, and obviously under the theme that we use, Eswatini that leaves nobody behind.
Nomza Modlamini, the Director of Gender Unit in the Deputy Prime Minister's office, says they are happy that women are considered in leadership positions, but they still have to do more.
The strategy also facilitates the participation of women and the youth entrepreneurs in economic activities.
In this program, they will not leave the boiled child behind, as doing so can create future pandemics. In a survey that was conducted by the CFI in 2018, 64% of Eswatini paying their money using mobile money, while banks follow with 52%. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Kian MCB, with Vumiko Sinsinisa, Ezulwini.
The Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Moses Vilagati, says the Swazi rally stimulates many industries in Eswatini as it brings in a lot of tourists into the country. Vilagati said this when launching the 29th edition of the Swazi rally at Riders Ranch in Stogoto.
Eswatini has previously financially benefited between 35 million to 40 million emalangeni annually through the stimulation of industries from the Swazi rally. The Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Moses Vilagati, says the financial and social contributions that are made through Swazi rally are massive.
We are excited once again that Swazi rally is up and going even this year. This will now be the 29th edition, where we are looking at over 5,000 bikers. We want it to be bigger and stronger because it attracts lots of bikers from all over SADC, and some actually coming outside of the SADC region. So this is very exciting. As we have explained over the few months, that all the activities that will stimulate tourism, that they should be allowed to proceed this year. It's one of those activities where we believe it can make a huge impact to the tourism sector.
Swazi Rally Director Carlos Paiva says most of the benefit brought about by the rally is on businesses outside of the rally itself.
Most of the benefits of the Swazi rally have got nothing to do with what happens here. It's about what happens in Eswatini. So when we start at the border, everybody leaves road tax at the border. Everybody's got to put fuel in their vehicles, whether they're motorcycles or motor cars. Everybody's got to eat, so the eateries. Everybody's got to sleep. There's hotels, guest houses. They've got to buy things to take back home. It could be a Ngwembe or a The
date for the 2022 Swazi Rally edition is from the 2nd to the 4th of September. Sifiso Ngumalo with Vusimba Mali for Eswatini TV News, Stvagodvo.
The Ministry of Commerce, Senators and Portfolio Committee have today discussed proposed changes of the existing Standards and Quality Bill of 2020, Bill number 13, as well as the Technical Regulatory and Quality Infrastructure Bill of 2020, Bill number 16. Commerce, Industry and Trade Minister Mangoba Khumalo says the proposed changes will align the legislations to the best practice model.
The Kingdom of Eswatini has been a member of the World Trade Organization since 1995 and is signatory to a number of treaties administered under this organization, including the World Trade Organization Technical Barriers to Trade Agreement. This agreement ensures that technical regulations, product standards, and conformity assessment procedures do not create unnecessary obstacles to trade. The agreement also recognizes the right of its members to implement measures to achieve legitimate policy objectives. Commerce, Industry and Trade Minister Mangoba Khumalo says the existing Standards and Quality Bill, as well as the Technical Regulatory and Quality Infrastructure Bill, have potential to cause unnecessary barriers to trade, hence the proposed changes.
The Technical Barriers to Trade Agreement strongly encourages members to base their measures on international standards as a means to facilitate trade. Through its transparency provisions, it also aims to create a predictable trading environment. The agreement is administered through the quality infrastructure institutions, that is the Regulatory and Quality Infrastructure Development Department, which is in our ministry. It also implements these standards through Eswatini Standards Authority, which is one of our parastatals. It also implements these standards through a section of the department called Weights and Measures in the Ministry of Commerce and other inspection bodies.
Minister Khumalo says the passing of the proposed changes will realize an export-driven economy and national economic growth. Sifiso Ngumalo with Vusimpa Mali for Eswatini TV News in Manzini.
The Minister of Labour and Social Security, Phila Buthelezi, says the government this year has allocated 78 million emalangeni to be granted to 2,550 local and SADC institutions applicants. The minister says due to financial constraints, no further scholarships will be awarded beyond this figure and appeals will not be considered.
During a press meeting on Thursday, the Minister of Labour and Social Security, Phila Buthelezi, informed the public that for the 2022-2023 pre-service tertiary education and training loan application, both for the SADC region and local institutions, a projected budget of 78 million emalangeni has been allocated, which will be granted to 2,550 new applicants only. The minister says no further scholarships will be awarded beyond this figure and no appeals will be considered.
As a ministry, as government, we would like to notify the general public that we have set aside about 78 million for new entrants into the scholarship loan facility. The 78 million will be for tuition and allowances for about 2,550 candidates who stand to be awarded the scholarships for this academic year. Of the 2,550, 2,500 are for local tertiary institutions and the 50 are for those admitted in SADC tertiary institutions. But that's not the entire budget for the year for this ministry. In as far as scholarships are concerned, the 78 is only for new entrants. We have been allocated a budget of 361 million for this financial year, of which we have spent in excess of 300 million, paying up tuition fees and dispersing some allowances to students. We project to spend a further 241 million on allowances and tuition fees, over and above the 78 million for new entrants, which will bring the total expenditure as projected for this financial year to be 680 million.
The minister says due to budget constraints, applicants meeting the application criteria will be subjected to a means of test or assessment for eligibility of scholarship grant.
For which we'll expect students to appear physically before the Scholarship Selection Board. They should come along with their parents as well, so that the assessment can be done appropriately.
Furthermore, the minister says this year there will be no consideration for the extension of students' allowances, similar to which the ministry has awarded 2 months once off amounting of over 22 million emalangeni in the academic year of 2021-2022 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkel Suekoza with Smuva Shongwe, Babane.
And now we'll have a look at our financial markets.
Standard Bank. It can be.
Moving on, we'll have a look at our sports news. Eswatini's top sprinter Sibusiso Swazi Matendra has progressed to the semi-finals of the 200-meter track and field at the ongoing 2022 Commonwealth Games. Matendra finished second in his heat behind Trinidad and Tobago star Jeremy Richards.
Eswatini top sprinter Sibusiso Swazi Matendra became the first athlete to give the nation hopes in the ongoing Commonwealth Games in England after qualifying for the semi-finals of the 200-meter in Birmingham. Matendra finished second behind Trinidad Tobago star Jeremy Richards. Matendra used 20.7 seconds behind number 1 Richards, who used 20.6 seconds. The local athlete has now progressed to the semi-finals scheduled for Friday. Other athletes to feature on the track were Benel Lamini, who finished 5th in his heat of 8 athletes, while Bongi Mahlalela in her heat of 7 athletes finished 4th. The Kingdom of Eswatini is now left with only 3 athletes, being Sibusiso Matendra of athletics and cycling duo being Gwanele Jele and Mozi Shabangu. For Eswatini TV Sports, Papiso Msonera, Babane.
And with that, we sum up our bulletin for the evening. Up next is a weather update. From myself and the team, thank you for your company. Good night.
Hi-Fi Corp, the home of savings this August. Don't regret it and buy it on credit when you shop this Hisense 65-inch UHD Smart TV for 11,999, save 1,500. Or this Sony 5.1 channel Dolby soundbar for 3,999, save 700. Or this Nokia C1 2nd edition smartphone for 1,399, save 100. Price is valid until 9 August. T's and C's apply. Hi-Fi Corp, your #1 deal destination.